Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our February 2nd, 2021 Board of Commissioners meeting. Our first order of business will please join me in the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome, everyone. Our first item on our agenda today is the agenda review. Is there any corrections or additions, Bob?
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda today.
I'll move approval of the agenda.
I'll second.
First and a second for the agenda review. Any discussion? Can you do the roll call, Jesse?
Commissioner Papp?
Aye.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Stuenberg?
Aye.
Chair Brunder?
Aye. Motion carries. At this time, we are going to be moving into our planning and zoning meeting. I know we have several people on the line, so if you could please mute your phones while we're working through this process, I would appreciate that. And then if you have to testify or visit about something, we will acknowledge you. At this time, we'll move into planning and zoning. We got Mark here, picking up on an item that we discussed at the last meeting. So go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you recall, at the January 19th County Board meeting, staff presented an amendment to the zoning ordinance to prevent the issuance of permits on properties with unresolved violations. There was public input at that meeting, and they expressed concerns over the language and potential impacts to land divisions. Since after the discussion, the board continued the public hearing to today's meeting. Since the last meeting, staff has had several discussions with internal staff as well as county attorney's office, and continues to recommend the language proposed on the 19th with the following in mind. The shoreland ordinance has similar language existing to what we're presenting here. That shoreland ordinance says that no permits will be issued for properties that have unresolved outstanding violations. Additionally, the land use plan has goals attributed to the cleanup of violations, in particular junkyards and groundwater contamination. Similarly, the surrounding counties, including Nicollet County, most specifically has language that prevents the issuance of construction permits with violations. And from a staffing perspective and time management perspective, we believe the language is an effective and cost-effective and efficient way for us to resolve compliance issues when presented for construction permits or other permits.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. At this time, I'll ask if any of the board members have any questions for Mark. Seeing none. Pat, do you want to give us your perspective on this ordinance, please?
Mr. Chair, thank you. As Mr. Vanderbilt said, we've had various conversations relating to this, and I still come back to the fact that regardless of what the property is in a state or not, we simply want compliance. And regardless if there's problems moving forward, those will be addressed. But I'm recommending, as is Mr. Matt, I'll concur with Mr. Vanderbilt's recommendation that the board just adopt this. I would be surprised if we deal with this issue once every 3 to 5 years, if then. So, but if we deal with it and there's problems, Florida County has always had a history of working with individuals with the intent and the goal of getting the property cleaned up and into compliance, and that's the first and foremost what we want to see.
All right. Thank you, Pat. Well, at this time, I was mentioned already, this is tabled from January 19th, so if I could get someone to remove it from the table for discussion at the board level.
So moved.
Vance, and then Mark for second to remove it from the table. Jesse, can you do a roll call?
Commissioner Papp?
Aye.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Stuenberg?
Aye.
Chair Brunder?
Aye. Okay, at this time, I am not going to open it up for public comment again because we already did have our public hearing. And so just some feedback or questions or comments from the board on what's been presented. I'll start. I met with Pat. I think this is a good policy to put in place. It may have a few hiccups down the road, but I think at the end of the day, we are trying to get some of these properties cleaned up, and when they aren't getting cleaned up, why should we just let it continue? So I'm going to support this today. Interesting to see if anyone else has any questions.
Mr. Chair, I don't have any
Please.
questions, and I think you're right. I think it's all about getting the property cleaned up. And if there are issues down the road, maybe once every 5 years, we can deal with it at that point. But I think this makes sense. And it's also similar to other counties'
Correct.
issues, and I think that's important too, that there's consistency.
Do we have a public hearing on this?
No.
We already had the hearing
We
on
already
it. I'm
had
not
that.
going to open it back
I
up
just
again.
didn't know if you were
Yep.
going to reopen that
Thank
public
you.
hearing or not.
Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll ask Jesse to do the roll call.
Commissioner Pap,
Aye.
Commissioner People,
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer,
Aye.
Commissioner Stuenberg,
Aye.
Chair Brunder.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Mark and Scott, for all your extra effort on this, and you too, Pat, because we
Have
had
a
to get
great
some
day,
questions
everyone.
answered. Thank you.
You too.
Thanks.
All right, at this time, we will move on to our drainage agenda. And we have Mr. Craig Austuson here, our ditch manager, and we have Chuck Brandel and maybe one of his helpers on the line, and several others that might want to testify today. So, good morning. Our hearing today is continued from the January 19th preliminary hearing on the proposed improvements to the lateral to CD 35. The purpose of this hearing is to consider the petition for drainage project with all matters pertaining to the preliminary survey report. Since most attendees are attending virtually, I would ask that you speak and introduce yourself before speaking. And at this time, I will have the staff go over the jurisdictional documents.
As this is a continuation of the January 19th, 2021 preliminary hearing to a time and date certain, no new notices were mailed. The DNR letter was read into the record on January 19th, 2021, so we won't reread that. There are no other jurisdictional documents.
All right, thank you, Craig. And at this time, we'll hear from Chuck Brandel, the engineer. And Chuck, just so we're clear, I think you have another commitment at 10:15?
About 10:20.
10:20, okay, I just want to I want everybody to acknowledge that, not that I want to rush anybody through this project, but we do have staff that have other commitments, so we'll just keep that in the back of our heads. So go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, can you guys hear me all right?
Yep.
All right, and I am sharing my screen. I just wanted to give everybody a quick overview of what the project was again. County Ditch 35 improvement. The watershed is shown in red, about 3,100 acres, just south of the city of Mapleton. The red line represents replacing a portion of ditch with a 60-inch tile. The green line represents replacing existing tile with new tile, primarily because the crossing of Highway 22 is in poor shape, and tile is very shallow just north of Highway 22. I do have to respond to the DNR letter, but before we get to that, I just want to show everybody what this ditch looks like. This is video from 2019, and the main purpose of this project is to try to stop this erosion that's happening. This is probably the worst shaped ditch in Blue Earth County, at least that I've worked on, and we've been trying to stop the erosion that's been happening on this ditch system for 20 years. Spent many dollars trying to fix this and it just keeps sloughing in. So the solution to this is to do what's shown just ahead on the video. You can just see how much sediment continues to slough into this ditch system. But right ahead, right here, this is what we're proposing to do for most of this stretch. We're looking south, is to put in a pipe, but we're proposing to put the pipe in the side slope and keep the ditch, but have it a shallower ditch where we can fill in, take the material off the top, and stop this erosion that's happening. I just want to remind everybody that that is the main goal of this project. And I could keep playing this and showing this, and it looks tore up the entire length of this gravel. So Our main goal is to stop erosion and prevent sediment from going downstream. So the response that we put together with the DNR, I did reach out to the DNR I had a meeting with some new staff that are reviewing preliminary engineer reports and final engineer reports. Ms. Joanne Betcher and Tim Giteke. I did ask that we have a meeting on projects just like 35. I have not heard back from them. I did follow up this week to try to set up a meeting to go over this project, and I haven't heard back from it with a time from them. But I do have a response. I hope you all had a chance to read the response. I'll go through it very quickly. Again, the main goal of this project is to fix an erosion problem. We did a test section as a repair, and it's worked out very well. Everything else we've tried hasn't worked out very well. We spent $500,000 over the last 10 years trying to fix this problem, and we're not anywhere near a solution for the amount of erosion that's going on. So after this test section went in, we met with landowners, went over many, many different options, including widening the ditch, flattening the side slopes, removing material. None of the options really solved the issue of the sloughing along the gravel road, and they were similar in price to putting in a pipe with an overflow. So that's what was petitioned. That's what we were told to move forward with. We did look at different options, including a two-stage ditch, but because of the poor soils in this area, we felt that a two-stage ditch wouldn't hold. We've had experience where you have light soils, two-stage ditches do not work very well. That was one of the DNR's comments. We looked at how much sediment is coming out of the system, and a very high-level overview that if we fix the sloughing, we could potentially save 330 tons of sediment per year. That wasn't a monitoring number, but that was based on a scenario application modeling, which is used in many of the One Watershed, One plants throughout the state. So a couple of the DNR comments. What are the capacities of County Ditch 95? We do have those. Those were in the report. The outlet to 95 has higher capacity than what the restrictions in the proposed CD35 would be. So this chart just shows those capacities. When the DNR asked about the capacities of the main line tile that will be abandoned, we did include those in the report, but this tile will be officially abandoned. And then what was the capacity of the overflow ditch? We did include that. It's about a high drainage coefficient, that's because it's an open ditch. The 6-inch tile actually is the restriction on the system. There were questions about the extent and alterations to CD95. That was also in the report. CD95 will have 2,300 feet of ditch that will be cleaned by approximately half a foot, and then 400 feet where 2 feet will be deepened to account for the tile being put into the side slope of CD35. There's a lot of questions in the DNR report about modeling. In the PER on page 8 and then Appendix E and Appendix F, most of that information was there. I have reached out to Ms. Joanne Betcher to get her a copy of our encrypted model to review. I have not heard back yet on that. So we will get all of that information to the DNR and can go over the model with them so they have a full understanding of how we're looking at the system. We did look at alternative measures, which was asked for in the DNR report. A lot of this was done before the petition. We had a feasibility study where we looked at open ditch options, tile options, trying to repair the system, and ultimately the landowners petition for the pipe option. Again, I covered the two-stage ditch alternative here. I do not feel that it's a wise choice for this system because of the light soils we have. The benches may not hold, and I have had experience with that. There was comments about land use and the importance of watershed planning. Again, this project's goal is to reduce erosion, and we are trying to match the peak flows on the on all of the events. We actually lower peak flows on the 5 and 10-year events, and slight increases on the 2, 25, and 50. We plan on reviewing this with the DNR to see if we can potentially match or lower the other events with some other controls within the watershed. There was a comment about wetlands. ISG performed the level 1 wetland delineation, and there are some wetlands in the northeast portion of the watershed, but none of them are within the footprint of the proposed ditch alterations or near the ditch alterations, thus there will be no wetland impact. There was comments about water quality. We feel that by fixing the ditch, we will improve water quality, as right now this system is a high source of sediment because of the erosion that is going on. There also is a small area of remnant prairie on the northern portion of the watershed near 22. This is not near or part of any of the proposed improvements, will not be disturbed. So, we believe that by fixing the sloughing issues that we will have a positive environmental impact, that we've tried to repair the ditch bank with standard practices, and it is not working. The soils are too light, there's too much groundwater, too much pressure on top. So we feel that option 4 will do the most effective job of eliminating sloughing. When we do meet with the DNR, we will go over our MDM plan and see if there's any alternatives that we can look at it and present to landowners. There's also a comment from MnDOT regarding tile crossings. I believe staff has reached out to Kurt Dieter, and he was going to get an opinion back on this. I don't believe he has yet. Either way, we feel whether the boring costs are paid by MnDOT or the ditch system, there will be enough benefits for the project. Again, we will be meeting with the DNR as soon as I can establish that meeting to go over this in more detail, but I want to do it per our last meeting. We have addressed a lot of their issues. I just have not had a chance to meet with them on those yet. Any more detail, I can go into the costs or details on the project, but we did cover over the last meeting.
Would anyone like to hear those again? I mean, they were all reviewed in the packet again. We heard them last month, so I think we're good on that, Chuck.
Okay, that's a summary of the, at least the report on reviewing the DNR's letter.
All right, Chuck, thank you for that report. At this time, does anybody have any questions for Chuck from the board before I open up the public hearing again? All right, at this time, I am going to open up for public comment. This hearing is being recorded, so please state your name and address for the record and keep your comments to 3 minutes, please. And I will try to work through this as best I can. So if anyone would like to testify on the ditch project for 35, please state your name and address for the record.
Good morning, Don Wiskuski.
Good morning, Don.
310 River Park Drive in Mankato. And thank you very much for providing additional time for the input and the opportunity to speak. Because of the bank erosion, sediment, water quality, flooding problems in the Minnesota River Basin and downstream, it's increasingly important to make the right decisions about the drainage. This ditch 35 project seems to be, the sloughing project appears to be well designed and accomplish, what they're setting out to do. There's a sharp difference. Whoops. Sorry about that. between the engineering firm and the DNR on the impact of the project on the water flow from the project area into the Maple. The Blue Earth County Drainage Authority, if they could defer action until the DNR and engineering firm resolve their differences on the adequacy of the critical modeling information, whether or not the project will result in greater quantities of water going into the Maple. If they can't resolve it, would it be wise to appoint a third party or an outside engineer or hydrologist to review it and recommend a resolution if the two parties, have issues? It's about all I got.
All right. Well, thank you, Don, for that input. We appreciate that. Anyone else wishing to comment? On County Ditch 35.
Commissioner, this is Bruce Sellers.
Good morning, Bruce.
I am the attorney for petitioners, and unfortunately I was not able to make the first meeting last month. It's my understanding that the DNR has raised some concerns with the proposed project, and I just wanted to make sure that the board understood that 103E, the Drainage Code, has a procedure in place for improvement projects, and this is just the preliminary stage. Nothing that happens today, you're not approving the final plans. All that would be done today would be to approve the preliminary engineering report and then order INS and Mr. Brandel to conduct a more detailed survey report. And there's the 4 criteria that must be met. Whether the drainage project was feasible, whether if there are adverse environmental impacts, are those impacts greater than any public benefit or utility, and is the outlet adequate? And I see nothing in Mr. Brandel's and INS's preliminary engineering report that contradicts any of those. The project is feasible. The issues that were raised by the DNR, I believe, were adequately addressed by Mr. Brandel in his reply. I understand that there are environmental concerns. There are in every project, but this particular project, I believe, more so than many of the public drainage projects, is addressing a significant environmental concern. This is a problem that's been going on for a long time, 10 plus years, and landowners have spent a significant amount of money trying to fix the problem, but have been unable to do so. And the landowners, petitioners, who I represent particularly, have gotten together and have come up with what they believe is a plan that will fix these erosion control. These problems that they're having will control the erosion. And I guess I would ask the board to proceed and allow Mr. Brandel to, between the time of the preliminary report and the final engineering report, there's going to be significant time, plenty of time, adequate time for the DNR and any other groups that are concerned to speak with Mr. Brandel and try to address those concerns. The advisory report, I would ask the board to keep in mind as well that the advisory report is just that, it's an advisory report. And maybe I'm incorrect, but I don't believe that there's any Clean Water Act jurisdiction issues or wetland replacement requirements or public water permits that are required. I don't believe an environmental assessment is required or an environmental impact statement is likely required. Now, I may be wrong, and Mr. Brandel can address that, but I see no reason that the board couldn't proceed with approving this preliminary engineering report and moving on to the next stage and allowing Mr. Brandel to work with the DNR and any other group to address their concerns.
All right, thank you, Bruce. Anyone else wishing to comment on County Ditch 35?
Yes. Hello. This is Don Arnos, 1722 Princeton Avenue in St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm working with and representing the Friends of the Minnesota Valley, which is a number of people, an organization that's been around for about 40 years, and people and members throughout the Minnesota River Valley. I want to thank the petitioners for coming forward with a solution to an important environmental problem, that of bank sloughing. And I want to thank the board for providing additional time for public input and this opportunity to speak on this. We do recognize that this project is designed and seems to have an effective solution for bank erosion and sediment. However, there is one significant adverse environmental effect which we are understanding there's, I'm going to say, a difference of opinion on between the petitioner's engineer and the DNR. We have also consulted retired engineers of our own, and they have provided us with interpretations that help us understand that we believe there will be increased water flows during high water events, as Mr. Brandel indicated in his presentation. We believe flooding is a significant issue for downstream areas, including all the way down to Mankato and into the Minnesota River Valley, and would ask that the Blue Earth County Drainage Authority please defer action on approving this preliminary report until Mr. Brandel and the DNR have had an opportunity to get together, which he indicated they've been working on, and come to some agreed upon understanding of what the effects of this project would be with regard to high water flows during flood events. And if indeed those flows are going up, as I believe Mr. Brandel indicated, under certain circumstances, up to 7%, that some work could be put into trying to find a way to reduce those flows, which again, I believe Mr. Brandel indicated might be an option. These are our concerns. We do appreciate the reduction in bank sloughing and sediment carrying, but believe that there's a little more work that needs to be done on this project to reduce adverse environmental effects, and would ask that you would defer action again today to allow Mr. Brandel and the DNR to get together and see some common understanding of what those effects might be and if they need to be further mitigated. I thank you for the opportunity to speak today and hope that you will pause your actions for just a little bit longer for that meeting to occur. Thank you.
Thank you. Was it Don, right? Yeah. Thank you, Don.
Yes.
Appreciate that input. Anyone else wishing to testify on County Ditch 35?
Hello,
Go ahead.
it's Mark Bosacker from North Mankato,
Mark.
419 Nicollet Avenue, North Mankato. And I'm not a resident of Blue Earth County or not a landowner, and I appreciate the care you're taking with this. I'd just like to chip in that I live I can presume to represent the recreational boaters and the other river users that what we see is any increased flow, especially when you reach a new peak, a new high, can bring down a lot of soil downstream from the bluffs. You know, I understand and see how you explained how this would reduce some erosion with the bank sloughing, but any new record flow tends to bring down big sloughs downstream with them being washed away. I don't think that the two sources of sediment are really balanced when you consider the peak flows and what they can do, the new higher peak flows. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, for those comments. I still see several people up on the screen, so I'm going to just ask again, anyone that would like to comment on 35, please state your name and number. One last time, anyone would like to testify on County Ditch 35 improvement, please state your name and address. All right, thank you very much for those comments from the people that did testify. I appreciate the input. At this point, I will close the public portion of the meeting and bring it back to the county board. And at this time, I would like someone to make a motion to bring it back for discussion.
So moved. Landcamer.
Got a first, do I have a second?
Pap seconds.
Got a second. Any discussion on bringing it back to the table? Hearing none. Jesse, can you do the roll?
What,
Oh.
excuse me, what would be the concern of, to hold it out a little bit longer and
Let's vote on this quick, Commissioner, and then we'll have the discussion.
All right.
Thank you. Jesse?
Commissioner Pap?
Aye.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Stuenberg?
All right.
Chair Brunder?
Aye. Okay, now now we can have discussion, and go ahead, Commissioner.
What would be the concern in expanding the time frame and letting ISG and the DNR get together and having a little bit more discussion and finding out what the differences are?
I'm going to open this up. Chuck, did you hear the question?
Yes, I did.
I'm gonna lean on you a little bit, but I have had some discussions with Chuck about this very issue as this came to the front in the last couple of days with the time crunch. And I think you, Commissioner Stuenberg, said, is 2 weeks enough 2 weeks ago when we talked about this, and we all thought it could get done. So Chuck and I have had this discussion, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chuck, but we aren't up against any specific timelines at this point. The project's been out there for several years. I appreciate Bruce's comments, and I don't think that there would be a big deal to delay it, but I'd like to hear some feedback from Chuck and his thoughts.
Well, I'm just going to go back to this chart here, which is kind of the 103E process. We're in the middle stage. The goal of the preliminary engineering report is to develop and obtain feedback from landowners, drainage authority, and agencies, which we have received, and check if the project is feasible, practical, cost-effective. Based on our report, I feel we have met these. But one of the things that needs to be completed before we get to the final engineering stage is a redetermination of benefits. I believe that redetermination of benefits has been ordered, but is not completed. So that being said, until that is completed, we cannot hold a final engineer's hearing. So whether you delay the preliminary hearing for a month or 6 weeks, I don't believe the viewers will have been out into the field until probably this spring. slow down the ultimate end of the project by delaying this. In either case, we have to work with the agency, whether you approve this today or approve it further on, because we have to submit a final engineering report at some point.
Thank you, Chuck. Other
Hope that was
questions?
clear enough.
Yep, very good. Other questions, comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner?
I guess I'm extremely frustrated that we got the letter the day before our last public hearing from the DNR. What, 4 or 7 pages of comments. I'm also extremely frustrated that the DNR has not gotten back to ISG. But I do think we're better off delaying it since people can't get in the field to do the redetermination anyway right now. We want to make sure we do this right, but I'm hoping that the DNR will make this a priority so we can make a good decision. I think we're all concerned about water quality and flows. That's why we do this stuff. So I'm hoping that the DNR will get back to ISG as soon as possible so that those discussions can happen. I'd like to delay it, but I'll wait for other comments before we make a decision.
Okay, thank you, Colleen. Kevin?
Mr. Chair, this is it appears kind of a long-term issue. We are a 20 issue, 10-plus years issue, and it's an important issue. And I think, our number one goal is to reduce sediment from the downstream. And the farmer in me tells me it's pretty simple. The way to reduce sediment is to reduce erosion. And we certainly have got some problems with that here. I think 330 tons per year was mentioned. It's really important to make the right decisions on this, but it's also important to go through the right steps and engaging not only those affected by this, but also those agencies. Really, 2 weeks ago, the reason to continue the hearing is we wanted to meet with the DNR. We didn't get that done yet. That needs to happen. It needs to happen soon, and we need to do what we can to make sure we can get them to the table to talk about this. But I really think as long as it's not going to slow down anything, that the right decision or the right step today is to continue this hearing and have that opportunity to meet with the DNR. So I would move that we continue the hearing to our next meeting.
I will second that.
Okay, well,
I have a question.
I would like to put a time certain on that, and I would actually like to make your motion be March 2nd at 9 o'clock, Kevin, if that would be okay with
Okay,
you.
I'm sorry. March 2nd, 9 o'clock.
Okay, I got a motion in advance. Did you second it? Did you second it? Okay.
Do we
Discussion, we'll have more discussion.
Mr. Chair, then do we figure that, I don't know, the DNR will be able to, we can get the DNR to get together, I guess, with Chuck and all the parties concerned?
Commissioner, if I may, I should be able to. Month should be plenty of time to have all the information, and just need to get a meeting set up to go over it. So I have put that request out, and I'm waiting for a reply. So hopefully I have a meeting set up this week.
Thank you, Chuck. Clean.
Okay, thank you.
I guess my only comment would be, for those of you who have spoken today, if you could also encourage the DNR to meet with Chuck.
Definitely, yeah.
If we fix the project, we're going to have increased flows. If we don't fix the project, we're going to have increased sediment.
Yeah.
I mean, so we're kind of sitting as darned if you do and darned if you don't. But we got to fix this project. We got to make sure that we don't have the sediment going down, but we have to make sure it's done right. Mm-hmm. And that's where I really appreciate Commissioner Papp's motion that we put this off for another month and make sure that we get things done the proper way. And since it's not going to hurt, we're not under a time frame, we're not under the gun that we have to sit and do it fast. Let's take our time and do it right.
all very good comments, and I've had several comments with Chuck and the staff on the delaying of this project, and I appreciate Bruce Sellner's comments, defending his position and moving this forward, but I think with the time we have, I certainly will support this today. I don't know what will come of it at the end of the day. I think the project will still go, but we might have some other modifications we have to make to the project, but I think it is a good project. I've been dealing with this thing as long as I can remember being on the board, so it would be nice to get the project done. But I think by taking one extra step here and just meeting with the DNR right now and getting that all done before we be safe.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, let's move into Public Works right away.
Oh,
We got a couple of.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
We have some more ditches.
We've been on it long enough, so I thought we.
Yeah.
County Ditch 28 petition for outlet.
Yes. A petition for an outlet into County Ditch 28 was received by the Property and Environmental Resources Department staff. This petition requests permission to outlet additional lands into the open ditch portion of County Ditch 28. The petition property is in the southwest quarter of Section 16 Lincoln Township and is currently in the County Ditch 50 and Joint Ditch, Judicial Ditch 7 watersheds. In the past, it has been our practice to appoint a viewer to make a recommendation regarding the outlet fee and benefits for future repairs. It is likely the viewer's recommendation will also include recommendations to reduce the benefits for portions of the property in the JD7 watershed. A hearing on this petition will be set at a later date once we have a better time frame from the viewers. Action requested: the Drainage Authority appoint Ron Ringquist to examine the petition and make a recommendation to the board regarding the outlet fees and benefits. A copy of the petition and draft in version of the proposed findings and order is attached.
Thank you, Craig. Do I have a motion to appoint Ron Ringquist to bring a recommendation back to the board?
Pat moves.
Landcamer seconds.
Got a first and a second. Any discussion, questions, or comments? Jesse, would call the roll.
Commissioner Pap,
Aye.
Commissioner People,
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer,
Aye.
Commissioner Sumberg,
Aye.
Chair Brunder.
Aye. Motion carries to appoint a viewer. County Ditch 57, setting a hearing date. Ryan?
Good morning.
Morning, Ryan.
Morning.
Good morning.
I'm here to discuss a petition for partial abandonment for a portion of County Ditch 57. Has been received by our Property and Environmental Resources Department. This petition affects only one landowner whom is on the petition. The need for this abandonment is in the best interest of County Ditch 57. I won't go through the description of the area as of today, but I'm here to request the setting of a hearing date for the Drainage Authority. Set the hearing date to be February 16th, 2021.
Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the hearing date of February 16th, 21 for
So
County
moved.
Ditch 57? Got a first. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none. Jesse, we call the roll.
Commissioner Pap,
Aye.
Commissioner People,
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer,
Aye.
Commissioner Stumberg,
Aye.
Chair Brunder.
Aye. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Guys have a good day.
Thanks, gentlemen.
And now we're bringing Ryan Tildes from the County Highway Department.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning,
Morning,
Ryan.
Brian.
All right. Excuse me. We've got a relatively packed agenda here today with a lot going on in Public Works, so I'll try to keep it moving, but as always, feel free to jump in with questions and comments. First action item is consideration of the Minnesota Department of Transportation detour agreement for trunk highway number 60. This is MnDOT contract number 1045256. The detour will be using our county stated highways 13 and 20 for about a month during the month of June while some pavement rehabilitation is happening on Highway 60.
Move to approve.
Pap seconds.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Looking at the map, I see they're also talking about using, 32?
Correct. There was a little bit of a thought that 32 would be easier for heavy trucks needing to utilize the ethanol plant instead of having them go through the city of Lake Crystal.
Okay.
So, and we were comfortable with that approach as well.
Okay, so they could use either one?
Correct. It'll be a little bit of a wayfinding and an unofficial detour route.
All right.
Other questions or comments? Hearing none. Jesse, we call the roll.
Commissioner Pap?
Aye.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Stuenberg?
Aye.
Chair Brunder?
Aye.
All right, thank you. The second action item is a resolution for said agreement number. As you recall, MnDOT requires not only the agreement to be completed, but also a resolution that's included in your packet for approval.
Okay, do you have a motion to accept the resolution?
Move approval, Landcamer.
Second, People.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Jesse, will call the roll.
Commissioner Pap?
Aye.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Stuenberg?
Aye.
Chair Brunder?
Aye.
All right, thank you. So now we get into some local road improvement program at resolutions of support. The first one in your packet is an updated resolution supporting the city of Mapleton's LRIP grant application for Borkert Street, as you recall, is the north border of the school. We approved this last month. However, I later learned that there were some additional verbiage that had to be included in the resolution. So the 10 bullet points were added for the state's requirements. So we'll get that to the city and they can finish up their application.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, got a first and a second to approve the resolution supporting the Mapleton LRIP grant. Any discussion? Hearing none, will you call the roll, Jesse?
Commissioner Pap?
Aye.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Stuenberg?
Aye.
Chair Brunder?
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay. Action item number 4 is resolution supporting Pleasant Mound Township's local road improvement program grant application. This is for work on 120th Street, which is in the very southwestern part of the county, just east of Arkansas 24. They have a road that's flooding out. They've taken a hydraulic analysis and determined the road has to be raised about 4 feet, and they have to put in a series of very large culverts. All of this is for one residence that gets drowned out their driveway. They're unable to get to and from their home at time for weeks on end. So somewhat dangerous situation for that residence, and we want to be supportive of our local agencies, whether they're interested in putting these applications in. So I've been working with all of the townships in the small city to review their applications, try to provide them with some pointers. You know, a little bit of what I would call peer review. I've told them I don't have time to, I'm struggling to write our own applications, but I'll try to help them how I can.
Pap moves.
Okay, do I have a second?
Landcamer seconds.
Okay, I got a motion and a second for the resolution of the Pleasant Mound Township LRIP grant. Any discussion?
Just a comment, 4 feet's a lot of feet.
My goodness, yeah.
It is, yes.
That is a lot. And I appreciate you helping out as a consultant to say on these, because these groups don't have the resources we have. So I appreciate you
Absolutely.
taking, I know you're busy, but I appreciate you taking the time out to help
Yep.
these small communities out. Any other discussion? Jesse, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Pap?
Aye.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Stuenberg?
Aye.
Chair Brunder?
Aye. Motion carries.
The next one is the same, not the same resolution, but another version of this resolution for Decoria Township for the reconstruction of more level playing field for the townships and small cities.
Very nice. All right, do I have a motion to accept the Decoria Township LRIP grant?
Move to approve.
First, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Pap?
Aye.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Stuenberg?
Aye.
Chair Brunder?
Aye.
Thank you. Action item number 6 is resolution supporting Blue Earth County's County State Aid Highway 7 in Mapleton LRIP grant application. So as I was looking at the criteria for this local road improvement program grant process, this certainly has a very significant regional impact, and I thought this would be a great candidate project for the LRIP money. I've got a rough draft of the application done that requires some further revisions. I did receive letters of support from the City Economic Development Authority, and this, among others, so I think it'd be a fantastic opportunity to go after these funds. This is probably one of our stronger candidates, and it would also provide some economic benefit to the city of Mapleton in the regard that they do obviously have at least a 10% cost share of the construction project. So if we could get the project theoretically nearly paid in full, it would reduce the impact of Blue Earth County and to the city.
On behalf of the chairman, I'll move this resolution.
Thank you, Colleen. Do you have a second?
Pap seconds.
Any discussion on the resolution supporting Blue Earth County for the state aid Highway 7 in Mapleton LRIP grant? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Pap?
Aye.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Stuenberg?
Aye.
Chair Brunder?
Aye.
All right. One thing I may mention is that the maximum grant amount is $1.25 million for up to 100% of the construction costs or that maximum amount. It does not cover the engineering, right-of-way contract administration. I think it's a good program, and in the circumstance of Mapleton, it could cover nearly all of the project cost.
That's great.
The next resolution included in your packet is for the reconstruction of County State Aid Highway 26. We have this in our capital improvement plan, I believe in 2023. This is for the segment from CSAH 57, that's North Riverfront Drive, to Highway 22. Again, now it's providing service to the Mankato Clinic Regional Health Campus. So again, looking at that regional aspect and the benefit to the community, I think this is another good candidate. I'm not quite as far on the development of this application. I do plan on reaching out for letters of support, getting that moving forward for the March 2nd or 3rd completion date, so we've got a month yet.
I would move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second for the resolution supporting Blue Earth County State Aid Highway 26 in Mankato, the LRIP grant application. Any questions or comments?
I didn't know that was between me and you and our districts. I didn't know which one, but I think it's mine.
Any discussion, questions, or comments? Hearing none, Jesse, we do the roll.
Commissioner Pap?
Aye.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Stuenberg?
Aye.
Chair Brunder?
Aye.
All right. Action item number 8, consideration of bids for the reconstruction of the Lake Crystal Shop. 10 bids were received with APX Construction as the low bidder with the base bid amount of $944,000. The bids were fairly tight, actually really tight. If you look at all of the bids, they range from $944,000 to $1.265 million. 9 of those 10 bids were within 13% of the low bid. So 9 of the 10 were packed really tight, and that 10th one kind of tailed off. That's a good sign. We do have some different factors at play above and beyond our recent project with the St. Clair shop. This project had some soft soils that will require correction at the site from the installation of a city sanitary sewer line. I looked at the soil borings myself because I had questioned the soil correction and the necessity, but when I looked at the blow counts per foot for the soil borings, I was confident that the soil repairs or corrections are needed, so that's an added cost to the total project. And this project is bigger. The Lake Crystal shop does house 4 maintenance employees instead of 3, so the shop had to grow from 5,100 square feet to 5,500 square feet. If we look at the cost per square foot basis compared to the St. Clair project that was done in 2019, the St. Clair project was $160 per square foot. This at a total cost of $829,000. This project is $170 per square foot, again for 4 employees instead of 3, which equates to about 3% per year inflation. That's less than we would anticipate with, generally speaking, 4% per year for these types of projects inflationary. So including the soil correction factor, that there's additional costs associated with that, and the fact that there was also an oil tank that has to be removed from this project that was not included in St. Clair. I think all in all, prices are are very fair. One caveat, there has been a recent rise in steel prices within the last month, so that has certainly likely influenced this project. But with that being said, we're prepared to move forward if the board is supportive of the project.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Do I have a motion to approve the bid for APX construction of $944,000?
Pat moves.
Second.
Okay, got a first and a second. Questions, comments?
The only question I have is, I know a lot of the bids are coming in lower than the engineer's estimate, and as I understand, this is higher. Is it worth rebidding, or is it because of the steel prices and the soil corrections that it probably wouldn't change?
A good question. I don't think it'll change. Seeing that we got 10 bids, if we only had a couple, I'd say maybe we want to try to recast our net because we are early yet in the bidding cycle. But the steel prices, when I had post-bid conversation with Justin from ISG, the steel prices are likely the key contributor, as well as the soil corrections. Those aren't something we're going to find on every project. It's a little bit of an anomaly on the existing site that we have.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
You're welcome.
And refresh my memory, Brian, or Ryan, how much do we have budgeted for this? Do we have enough budgeted, or are we?
This is over the
Little bit
budgeted
over.
amount. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to recall if we were at like 850,000,
My recollection was that really close to this,
somewhere in there.
so.
We budgeted for these projects, years back, and then we've seen the cost
Mhm.
creep, and we do need to likely adjust the budget numbers in the future because the Good Thunder shop will be similar magnitude to this one, having to house 4 employees again, if not slightly bigger.
Well, it's getting expensive to do this. I was actually pleasantly surprised from the bid. I mean, not knowing about the groundwork, but metal has gone up quite a bit, so, and the availability of it has been problematic, so.
We could look at a form line concrete shop, but that would be more
Yeah.
expensive, but it would be
A little bit
longer
more.
lasting.
Don't get Mark started.
I always wonder what the different options are.
So, all right, any other discussion? Otherwise, I got a motion on the table for APX construction for $944,000 for a building in Lake Crystal. No other discussion? Jesse would do the roll.
Commissioner Pap?
Aye.
Commissioner Pepo?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Stuenberg?
Aye.
Chair Brunder?
Aye. Motion carries.
Fantastic. The action item number 9, consideration of bids for 2 new tandem axle trucks with snow equipment. We received 3 bids, North Central International Truck Center and Nuss Truck and Equipment for International Freightliner and Mack trucks. The apparent low bidder was North Central International. And this includes purchase of, again, 2 new trucks with trade-ins of a 2008 and 2007 units that are listed on the table. So with that being said, this was a budgeted item. We would recommend approval of the purchase from North Central International.
Move to approve.
Okay, got a
People
motion.
second.
Got a second for approval of 2 trucks with some trade-ins to North Central for $296,990. Any discussion?
Just a question.
Yes.
And that's what was budgeted, or is it higher or lower?
This is, I believe this is right within budget. I think we had
Okay.
300,000 budgeted. And I will mention, we also had money included in the budget for purchase of snow equipment.
Mhm.
So that's, that'll be done as a separate quote solicitation because it's under the procurement policy
Okay.
values that are set aside. But we'll have to obviously also get snow equipment and boxes fabricated for these units.
Okay,
And those are
so
all
the
budgeted
snow
items.
equipment is not included in this?
I'm sorry, I'm
The
on
trade-in
last
is the
one.
snow equipment, but
Yeah.
it's not included in the trucks that
It
we're
says
getting.
tandem axle trucks with
Correct.
dump body and sanding equipment.
Yep,
So no plows.
correct. The plows are a separate item that we have to purchase.
Okay.
Other questions, comments? This is a reason why we have to build million-dollar buildings, so we can keep this very expensive in and make it last longer. I mean,
That's
it
absolutely
is,
right.
it is very beneficial. You get more life out of this equipment if you can store it and properly take care of it.
Absolutely.
Very
correct.
much so. If it's properly taken care of, it will last a lot longer and have more value. If there's no other discussion, I will have the roll call, please.
Commissioner Pap?
Aye.
Commissioner Pepo?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Stuenberg?
Aye.
Chair Brunder?
Aye. Motion carries.
All right, fantastic. Action item number 10 is consideration of bids for one new motor grader with snow wing and optional 6-wheel drive. We received 2 bids, as usual, one from RDO Equipment for John Deere 770G, one from Ziegler Caterpillar for a Caterpillar 150. The state bid unit prices are listed. There's adjustments that are necessary to meet our specifications, and as you can see, Caterpillar has to have quite a bit of an add-on to meet our specifications, whereas the John Deere is built to our specs. With that being said, then we have the trade-in values. John Deere was considerably higher on the trade-in of our 2007 motor grader with snow wings by nearly $30,000. Total cost from RDO Equipment for the John Deere, $208,667. Total cost for the Ziegler Caterpillar 150, $293,520. With that being said, we also included additional attachments, bid add alternates. The handy hitch walk and roll packer, we want to just keep the price on that depending how things come out. We would like to add one to the fleet, but it's not top of our list. However, the 6-wheel drive is something we've discussed, I know, several times in the past. And this machine is actually going to be replacing our existing 6-wheel drive machine in the Lake Crystal shop, and that's there for the reason of the northwest corner of the county that blade covers has considerable hills on the gravel roads, and the 6-wheel drive has been very helpful for that. So we would like to move forward with the 6-wheel drive machine for this replacement. That older 6-wheel drive machine will actually come to Mankato and be used as a backup machine, so that when we have equipment breakdowns, we're able to utilize that motor grader for either earth moving operations or primarily for snow route coverage. If we have a tandem or a blade go down, we have one extra machine to help us out. And then in the future, that older 6-wheel drive machine would be traded in. This trade-in does include the trade-in of an existing 4-wheel drive machine. That's the oldest unit, that's our current backup machine. So with that, we would propose the additional $27,896 purchase, and there's some additional facts to support this. As we've been replacing our deferred equipment, we have the old equipment that has to be sold, and as we look through that list, we have 6 pieces of equipment that we are preparing to sell off this year, including a trencher, a 1955 Raptor, a 1966 Oshkosh dump truck, an old chassis and booster truck, that 1951 truck-mounted snowblower unit with a broken axle. That still has considerable value because the axle can be repaired, and the snowblower unit itself, even for parts, has pretty good value knowing that it's in working operation. And then in addition to that, we have a 2001 F-350 dump truck. So we think between all of those pieces of equipment, selling those off, it's going to come out at least at a wash with respect to the upgrade to the 6-wheel drive on this machine. And even worst case scenario, if we're not able to cover that with a sale of this equipment over the course of the year, we're prepared to hold off on purchasing a mower tractor that was budgeted out for the year, so that we can make this purchase.
What's the handy hitch?
That's a rear-mounted hydraulic, and it's a rubber-tired roller. So as they're blading the gravel, it's hydraulically mounted, and it comes down, and it actually rolls the freshly bladed gravel behind it.
That's also something you're asking for?
It's not at this point in time. No.
Okay.
They would certainly like to add more to the fleet because it does help pack the material down behind the roller and seal the surface up. We have a couple, but eventually we'd like to add them to the fleet, but not at this point in time for budgetary reasons.
All righty. Do I have a motion to accept the bid from RDO for $208,667 for a new grader, and then the upgrade of $27,896 for the 6-wheel drive edition?
So moved, Mr. Chair. Seconds.
Got a first and a second. Discussion? Questions, comments? So Ryan, about the handy hitch, so do you have any quantifiable way of saying by using that packer after you grade a road, you don't have to go back as many times, or is there anything you're keeping track of to see if, other than the
Unfortunately,
fact that it's a
no,
better product?
Commissioner, I'm ill prepared on that one.
No.
I don't have any quantifiable proof or anything of that regard, but just the logic that sealing it up is gonna reduce the loss of materials, the dust that's kicked up, create a smoother, more durable surface, you know, because otherwise it takes a while before the vehicle tires pack the road back down and reseal it. So it just helps put everything back together. Generally speaking, when we're out blading the roads, they do have some moisture from a recent rainfall. And so that helps tighten everything back up and put it all back together right away.
Yeah, that's what my thought was, and if you could, you know, I know it's a big investment, but if you don't have to grade that road 1 or 2 more times in a year, you get more life out of the gravel. Gravel's expensive, and there's all that stuff, but.
Absolutely.
So just kind of keep an eye on that, and it's just be interesting to see.
Yeah.
And I would imagine if it's packed, if someone comes out there and it is a little moist, you're not cutting roots in that new gravel graded area, and.
Absolutely.
So.
There's certainly benefit, and I'll look for some research to see if there's quantifiable.
I'd like you to bring that back up too, because I was thinking of throwing that into motion, so, you know, of course, budget restraints are there too, and I appreciate that, but if it helps our, the grading and stuff out in the country and helps those, you know, so it doesn't get ruts and stuff in the road, that would be huge, especially in some of our county gravel roads.
It certainly contributes to density, which I know just fundamentally is critical. When we build roads, we make these, you know, we make a heavy rubber tire roller go over the gravel base or the gravel surfacing to pack it down, to knead it together, to tie it together. And so, you know, just from a construction standpoint, obviously, yes, it has tremendous benefit as far as how that benefits the blading frequency or gravel loss, et cetera. I just don't have any data.
No.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Mr. Chair, one more question.
Yep.
And just remind me, how many gravel roads do we have in Blue Earth
We
County?
have 330 miles of gravel roads approximately.
Yeah.
330 or 340.
And 752 or something of
Total.
road total,
Total.
yeah? Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions?
I'm somewhat amazed at the difference. I was looking, you know, when you first looked at this, and I first opened this up, I'm going, oh, looks like Caterpillar's gonna get it because it's cheaper. And then all of a sudden you put all the other adjustments to it and the trade-in and stuff, and of course I'm a John Deere guy from way back on the farm. But, I was surprised at the huge difference when it came out to total cost. I mean, darn near $90,000 worth,
Absolutely.
which is amazing.
That's
So-
what we go this route. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
Why we go this route in lieu of just strictly utilizing state bid, because it ensures we do get apples to apples. It takes the trade-in values into account as well. Sometimes we do keep a retainer that we have the right to just sell the piece of equipment if we don't like the trade-in value.
Sure.
And we're going to start doing that with some of the pickups and things like that. But in this circumstance, the trade-in value was good from John Deere.
Good discussion.
Yeah,
Always
Good
like
question.
to get some more knowledge on our equipment, so thank you.
Absolutely.
it's always interesting.
All right, so I got a motion and a second for RDO for $208,667 and the add-on for the six-wheel drive for $26,896. Jesse, you could call the roll, please.
Commissioner Pap?
Aye.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Stuhlberg?
All right.
Chair Brunder?
Aye, motion carries.
All right, wonderful. Well, with that, we'll move on to some informational item updates with respect to our construction projects, current and upcoming. County State Highway 41 bridge replacement project that began last year and will wrap up this summer. The beams are set. Work is set to resume in early spring when conditions are fit. The CASA 16 trail from Stadium to Pleasant in Mankato. The trees were removed actually for that project, so they're ready to begin their earthwork grading and paving again in early spring. CASA 27 reconstruction from Minnesota Highway 14 to CASA 2. Work is set to begin in the spring. There are some utility relocations happening now with Excel Energy Consolidated, and Benco also have to relocate, so that should begin relatively soon. And then Great River Energy with those big transmission poles will also be relocating. So we've worked through that. They've submitted their permit and are gearing up for that work. CASA 27 in Eagle Lake. Plan development is underway. We're targeting a March 31st bid letting. We did have a public open house meeting that went fairly well. We did get one gentleman jumped on late in the meeting, probably about 20 minutes left. So we sat there for about a half hour kind of waiting, and then he jumped on and at least made the end of it interesting, and we had some conversations about his concerns and needing access, et cetera. CASA 57 roundabouts is North Riverfront Drive at US Highway 14. 95% plans have been submitted to District 7 and Central Office for their approvals. We anticipate bid letting in late March or early April. So for us, 95% plans are complete plans, but they go to the state to see if they have any I's or dotted their T's. 4 bridges to cover portions of the project cost. So for CASA 7, we received $212,000 bond dollars for a $582,000 project, requiring $367,000 local. And again, a lot of that is half of the bridge cost plus the road approach reconstruction tie-in work. On 40, we received $129,000 of state bridge bonds, matching with our $192,000 local for a $321,000 project. We're anticipating doing 7, try to squeeze it in this year. 40, we're anticipating next year. On 151, we received $274,000 bridge cost and $111,000 local cost for a $385,000 project. We're uncertain if we'll get that done this year or next year. Maybe one that we begin late fall, leave the road closed over the winter because there's very minimal detour and impact to the traffic on the road. And then 169, $475,000 of state bridge bonds coupled with $195,000 local for a $670,000 project. Again, likely that'll be a 2022 project. So for the county roads, we actually get 100% of the bridge replacement cost. For the county stated highways, we get half. County Stated Highway 7 in Mapleton, project design proposals were received from Bolton & Mink, Stonebrook, and SRF Consulting. After we evaluated the proposals, we decided to go with Stonebrook Engineering. So we anticipate finalizing those design contracts and moving into project design this month. CASA 10 and 72 in Vernon Center is still on track for 2022. The city consultant engineer, SEH, is moving forward with the design work for that because it encompasses so many other city streets. And CASA 12 from 26 to 2. I know I've spoken to Commissioners Brunder and I believe Struenberg about this road. We've been up in the air on what to do with this. This is the last phase of County Road 12 from 26 to the North County line. The existing road is relatively narrow, 12-foot driving lanes and really only about a 3-foot shoulder. The inslopes are less than desirable. They're a little bit steeper than we would like to see. Relatively tight right-of-way corridor through there. So we did run 2 different alternatives. We looked at recycling the pavement with pipe replacement costs on a project that would be kind of a 20-year life expectancy. And we came out to about $1 million on that. We also evaluated full reconstruction, which would include recycling the existing base, widening the road so that we'd have 6 to 8 foot shoulders, safer, flatter inslopes, wider ditch bottoms, and better back slopes. Would require additional right-of-way acquisition, but it would tie in very nicely to the corridor, the rest of the corridor with good wide shoulders for our farm-to-market traffic. That came to about $2.1 million construction cost. And again, that's for a road that after we factor in overlays and life expectancy, that's a brand new road that'll have a 50+ year life expectancy. The other factor taken into account was the updated Mankato Area Planning Organization Long-Range Transportation Plan that was just updated in 2020. That road, when we started looking at traffic projections for it, initially in the 2015 plan was slated as a 3-lane. As we started looking closer at the traffic volumes for it, it really doesn't come close to meeting warrants for a 3-lane. It's served very well from a 2-lane road with adequate turn lanes and bypass lanes, etc. So we're very comfortable moving forward with a 2-lane road there, speaking with the city as well. I don't know that there's anticipation that development's gonna make it out there in the real near future. It's probably that 15 to 20 years out, and even with that being said, the 2-lane has good capacity with those turn lanes at the proper locations to serve that. So with that being said, we are looking at soliciting for a professional design services contract and get that under design for construction in 2022 as a 2-lane rural highway.
Commissioner Stuhnberg?
Yes.
And we're talking about the airport road.
Correct.
And, you know, my concern was the airport certainly has about every 3 years has a air show, which puts thousands of cars up and down that road.
Right.
If you're talking about the second option where you're total reconstruction, you're widening out the road, which to me sounds like a great idea, especially for multimodal, people riding bicycles and stuff like that. Could that be changed over in time to a 3-lane if necessary?
Hypothetically, but it may require additional shoulder widening, and depending how the turn lanes come into play, et cetera, we can certainly look into that. It's when we look at the 20-year traffic projection factors in the long-range transportation plan, it fell well short of the need for a 3-lane road.
Yeah, well, you certainly can't build a road for a 1 week
right.
thing every 4 years.
Yeah.
You can't do that. But that road is in need of construction. It's you know, I drive it many times a week, it seems like, and so you know, my option would be the second option of widening it and getting it done right. But I'd like to see more consultants and see what they have to say about it.
Sure. And I know I did talk with the city engineer as well about it, and the thought was that the airport is adequately served from a 2-lane road, and that, yes, the air show is an outlier in that the strain, but it's that 2 days or that weekend and everything's shut down and it becomes a one-way in and one-way out, and that actually functions fairly well with the traffic control and the planning they have. So a wider road would certainly benefit the air show as well and make it even better.
When we're buying right away, because I assume we're going to have to,
Yes.
the possibility exists, can we add just a little more right away so we can change it in the future if needed?
Well, and that would be our objective, is to get adequate right-of-way to
Do that
try
in
to
the future.
facilitate
Yeah.
what we need now, and if there is a consideration for traffic growth. But really, as we looked at the numbers, you know, a lot of that traffic falls off, you know, obviously at 26.
Yeah.
And then, I'm sorry, 26 west as you go towards the health campus. And then as you go farther north, 26 to the east, that would go to Madison Lake, traffic falls off there. So when you get to this northernmost segment, it's relatively, it's not a small traffic volume, but it's well short of the 10 to 13,000 that 2-lane road can handle. I mean, it's a third, so it's going to take a long time and a lot of development for it to fill out. And I just struggle with a 3-lane out there now, because we'll be overlaying it before it's even necessary 20 years out. And that's just a lot of infrastructure to put out there for a lot of uncertainty.
I understand you waiting on the 3-lane. I'm just wondering if we have the right of way.
Set it up like we did with 90.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yep, absolutely.
Makes a lot of sense. So just doing the 1 million project, Ryan, you said only has life expectancy of about 20 years?
That's about what we'd anticipate,
Okay.
and again, that only leaves us with 3-foot shoulders, and just basically a cold-in-place recycled bituminous mat and a new, and a thin overlay over that, and then, because we don't have a lot of room to go up.
Right.
We would have to replace pipes, which then if you go to widen in 20 years, then are you replacing them all? Can you get them to fit? Those pipes don't always tie together that well with old and new. So that's the plan for 12. So I appreciate the feedback on it. It's very helpful to have this dialogue. And then last but not least, the Rapidan Dam update. A conference call was held on January 25th between Eagle Creek Renewable Energy, Alpine Pacific, Energy and Blue Earth County, including Commissioners Stuenberg and Papp, as well as Bob Meyer and myself and other county public works staff. Updates were provided on the Blue Earth County repair and removal feasibility reports and where we're at in that process. We actually have our kickoff meeting with Bar Engineering on those tomorrow, so going through that. And then really got into discussion of Alpine Pacific's proposal, how it could be structured for them to take over the lease agreement from Eagle Creek Renewable Energy. They estimate that the total project cost just for the hydroelectric components of the dam, returning that to generation, as well as repairs to the gates from the debris damages, at $3.8 million for that project cost. And then we would still have to fix the aprons and the upstream and downstream sluice gates, etc., on the structure of the dam. The structure of the agreement that they proposed for discussion was they would have to put in some capital. Eagle Creek would have to contribute some capital as kind of a buyout out of there. And then they would also request approximately a $2.5 million loan from Blue Earth County over a 40-year period at a 3% interest rate. And the 40-year period was based on the ROI for what they anticipate revenue minus costs for electrical generation over the course of the future. Right now, the commodities prices, they're able to, in a good year, garner $400,000 to $450,000 worth of revenue under the power purchase agreement with Xcel Energy. So it leaves a thinner profit margin. So that was what was proposed. We really didn't take it too far beyond that. We just informed them that we would bring it forward to our elected officials. We would think about it, and then we would keep them in the loop as we go through, obviously, our studies. That's a critical component before the county is going to, commit to any really formal agreement with respect to the future of the dam. Unfortunately, they wanted a faster time frame than what the county is looking at, but I think they understood that we need to do our due diligence and really fully understand the future of the Rapidan Dam. I don't know if I missed anything at all, or commissioners?
No, I think you named it properly. I think we're still up in the air as what the future is of the dam. So you named that pretty well, and it was a good meeting. I appreciated having Commissioner Papp on at the same time, and it was we just haven't made that decision what's feasible for Blue Earth County and what's the proper way to go, whether we shut it out completely, because they're talking millions and millions of dollars to bring it up to operational. And whether we should turn around and go with what the DNR talked about here months ago and turn areas into a recreational and actually take the dam out over a time period, or do we spend that money? Trouble is we certainly aren't going to pay for what we put into it with what they're getting for electricity and how much we could get out of that dam, even if it was full operational.
Correct.
I guess I would just add, we talked about in the drainage part of our meeting this morning, making sure we make the right decisions, but have to have the right steps before you can make those right decisions. And I think we just got more questions than answers right now, and there's a lot of steps before we
That's absolutely right.
are ready to make any commitment or any continued conversations as it talks about hydroelectric energy and stuff. We had a lot of steps to do before that.
That's correct.
Good update. Other questions on the Rapidan Dam? Thanks for your input, commissioners. I appreciate you guys sitting on the call, and Bob too. That's always helpful to have more people listening because it has a financial and a public works interest with maintenance. So.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, commissioners, for your time. I do greatly appreciate you being on that call and the support of our department. So.
Any other questions for Ryan before we let him step out?
It's just like the movie The Money Pit.
It's not going away anytime soon.
That is one huge money pit.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you couple 3.8 million inside, and then, I had anticipated, I think I estimated 2.6 for the apron and the other repairs. You're pushing 7 and then later with escalation.
And that's just the beginning.
Right. That does.
Yeah, then there's still the issue that things are still going to be, it's still a 110-year-old
Yeah.
building that's going to deteriorate.
Absolutely.
Maybe if it's moving, if it's, Money Pit, can we get the movie right somehow? The other one was successful.
Sequel.
All right, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank you for that
Thanks,
update. We
Ryan.
appreciate it. All right, welcome back, everyone. Let's continue with our agenda. Next item I have on my agenda is the county attorney's update. Pat?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. The annual report is in the packet. I'll take any questions that you have. I'll just give you a little bit of an update on current events, so to speak, with affecting our office, in particular with the courts, the latest Supreme Court order. No jury trials until at least March 15th. We'll wait and see what happens beyond that. We have had judges request to have trials because of people incarcerated in custody, and they've consistently been told just continue them for another 60 days. I'm talking to colleagues and others in the system. Once things do open back up for jury trials, they anticipate it'll probably take us about a year to get through everything that we have backlogged right now. With respect to the vast majority of the hearings, Blue Earth County is actually top in the district of the 15 counties in the district, with a clearance rate in the high 80s, low 90s every month. They keep track of that, so other counties are much lower than that. So the hearings that are being held in a timely fashion. So other than that, we just continue to move forward and do what we can do given the pandemic. Any questions, concerns, or comments?
Questions for Pat?
No.
Okay.
When we're holding someone, Pat, for a trial, can we go past the year if it's pre-trial? Because we can only hold someone for up to a year in the county jail, correct?
Well, technically not,
Okay.
because if they're being held pre-trial, if they've been sentenced, they
After
can
there's
only be held for
1 year.
365 days.
Okay.
Up to 300.
But pre-sentence could go over a
pre-sen-
year.
Correct.
Okay.
We've actually, and we'll get into some of the homicide cases, some of the more serious cases that individuals, we just had somebody sentenced a couple of weeks ago that had 400 and some days of credit for time served on their prison sentence because they've actually been sitting locally, but it's through no fault of any of ours that they ended up sitting in custody that long, basically them requesting continuances or other types of situations. So.
Okay. Any other questions for Pat?
Just a comment, sometimes that's a really positive thing for the state when we hold them.
Yes.
Well, it can be, but
Yeah.
Cost-wise is what I'm talking
right.
about.
Yeah.
Right, yes.
Well, I
All right.
appreciate the report you always give us,
Thank
Pat.
you.
This is always very helpful, so thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
All right, we will move on to administrative items.
I'll move the minutes.
Second?
Got a first and a second for the minutes. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Pap,
Aye.
Commissioner People,
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer,
Aye.
Commissioner Stuenberg,
Aye.
Chair Brunder.
Aye. Motion carries. Bills. Anybody got any questions for Bob, or you want to move the bills?
Well, I'll move the bills.
All right, I got a first.
Second.
Got a first and a second for the bills. Any questions that need to be answered that you haven't asked in the prior? As we all do. Seeing none, Jesse will do the roll call for the bills.
Commissioner Pap,
Aye.
Commissioner People,
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer,
Aye.
Commissioner Stuenberg,
Aye.
Chair Brunder.
Aye. Motion carries. Human Resources.
Now, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 9 in your packet is the Human Resources Department agenda. Just some informational items for the board today. We have filled a team equipment operator in our Public Works area, as well as a community-based coordinator within our Human Services Department. And we've also filled a correctional officer position in the jail and a human resources technician position within our Human Resources Department. And so those are all listed there, and I'd be happy to answer any questions on any of those positions if the board has any.
Any question on the informational items for Bob? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on down to the LeSueur Watershed Committee assignment.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, you know, you've had information in front of you in the past regarding a memorandum of agreement for the LeSueur watershed. That watershed management plan, also known as the One Watershed, One Plan, represents the 6 counties and soil and water conservation districts from Blue Earth, Faribault, Freeborn, LeSueur, Steele, and Waseca County. And so the policy committee is being formed, and we're recommending that Commissioner Papp be appointed, with Commissioner Brunder being appointed as an alternate.
Landcamer will move the appointment of Commissioner Papp and Commissioner Brunder as the alternate.
Second.
All right, I got a motion and a second for the appointment for the LeSueur Watershed Policy Committee.
I have
Any
a question.
discussion?
Yeah. LeSueur and Steele have opted out, so do they not have much in the watershed? Or I just was under the assumption that if you were in it, you had to participate, but obviously I'm wrong.
The choice really is for the individual counties, and sometimes it's a matter of staffing resources to devote to the effort. And so each county is making a choice on whether they want to invest time and resources into these One Watershed, One Plan activities.
I'm hoping that they don't opt out and then come back at the end and say they don't like it.
Yeah. That's always a challenge.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, maybe they don't
Not
have
having
that
much.
piece of information, but.
Yep.
Good comments. Any other discussion on the Watershed Committee assignment? Hearing none, will you take the roll call, Jesse?
Commissioner Papp,
Do I vote for myself or do I abstain? How does this work?
You can vote for yourself.
Yeah, you vote for yourself. It's
Or no.
democracy.
We've never had anybody abstain. You can vote no, but no, we vote.
Commissioner
Kevin.
People,
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer,
Aye.
Commissioner Stuenberg,
Aye.
Chair Brunder.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, well, that looks like that brings me to the end of my agenda, Bob. I don't know if you have anything to add or if anybody else has anything to add.
That's all there is for administrative items,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
If there's nothing else to add for the good of the cause, I'll move on to committee reports. Mark, we're going to start with you today.
Everybody's usually, not too much. January 21st, we did our MICA annual meeting, and we were honored by having a Clean Land Camera and Mr.
Vance.
Sternberg there in our meeting. That's always exciting to have online. And it was not too bad, though. It was run pretty good. And on the 27th, I had a preparation meeting for Pedal Past Poverty, and outside of our regular meeting. And Blue Earth County this year will be an integral part of the program. We will be having, geez, no, I don't even have the date now. I can't remember. The Pedal Past Poverty will be this year, the April 24th. It's a Saturday, and it will be in our Blue Earth County parking lot, our ramp.
Oh,
It'll be on the main, the more level floor. I guess again, people park up above, but we will have it from like about 11 to 4 or 5 in the afternoon, because we got to set it up in the morning. We don't have it, can't do it overnight like before, but it should work out. And I figure if the Twins can play in April, we ought to be able to ride bikes in the end of April.
All right.
Good.
So that's,
So you're gonna
That's it.
have it like on the second floor, so if it rains, you're covered, or
well, we'll be on the
you're covered?
the floor that's most level, which is the
That's a
first
good
floor.
idea.
The lowest.
Out in the open.
So
and-
it's
Yeah,
covered.
So it's protected somewhat from the weather, it might be a little
That's a
cooler.
good idea.
And a good use of the ramp on a Saturday.
Yeah.
That's right, and Tim's been very good and about it, and they're actually brought it up, and I pursued
Great
it with
idea.
Bob and Tim, and it should work out. So everybody get ready to support it. Anyway, then on the 28th, did have our Partners for Housing, and of course that's what it is now. You're not PAH Partners. Affordable housing is just Partners for Housing. It's just P4, number 4H. So it's a little different. And then we had, that was a regular meeting. And then I did have on the second, the joint, this morning, our joint ditch meeting. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Mark. Kevin?
Well, as has been mentioned, I participated with other commissioners and staff at the Rapidan Dam meeting, as well as CASA 27, Ditch 50 landowners meeting. Participated for 2 days, January 20th and 21st of the AMC new commissioner training, so we're about half done with that. Attended my first Rural Energy Board meeting on January 25th. And then also on January 20th, had most of the afternoon, and thanks to Bob and Blue Earth County Human Services orientation. I'm not sure how many people I visited with, but it was a lot. So spent multiple hours, quite frankly, with that. So really appreciated the time and the opportunity to ask questions and hear about a lot of the things I'm not as familiar with. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Kevin. Vance?
Well, our last meeting was on January 19th. After that meeting, I had a Central Region meeting through NACO. And then, of course, I tuned into the CASA 27 Reconstruction Open House. On the 21st, I had a meeting with our new representative, Luke Fredericks, in the morning. Had a real nice talk, about an hour long, Teams meeting, with him. And then after that, I had a TDS board meeting. That same day, I did do the MICA meeting. And after the MICA meeting, I had a 169 corridor meeting. So I had a full day that day. On the 22nd, I had my Transportation Alliance Board of Directors meeting. On the 25th, we had our Rapidan Dam discussion. Let's see, on the 28th, we had our first meeting of the State Transportation Plans Policy Advisory Committee. Really, it was more of an introductory, trying to decide what we were going to be doing. But I think it's going to be positive. It's always good when MnDOT opens up and says, what's your idea? Hopefully they listen to our ideas, and we'll see what happens. Let's see, on the 29th, I had a Transportation Alliance regional meeting. We're going to have regional summits across the state, and so the board got together and decided how that's going to occur. And let's see here. Later on, myself and Josh got together and spoke about with one of our local people about issues with the library and how things might work out in the future. And let's see. Yesterday, I had a 169 corridor legislative open house, which is, usually we went up to the state capitol and had this done. This was all done on Zoom, and we probably had 3 times more amount of people there than we've ever had in the future. This is one of those cases where Zoom really came in handy, and hopefully in the future, even though we might go back up to the Capitol to do a one-on-one, we can also get people to Zoom in and make sure we get everybody. There was one representative that we weren't able to get in the morning, and he tuned on in the afternoon at 1 o'clock. Representative Farr came on and talked to us in the afternoon. That's the end of mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Colleen.
As was mentioned on the 19th, after the board meeting, we had the NACO Central Committee. Tracy, who's from Missouri, who's the new chair, that does a nice job and is working really hard at it. On the 20th, I had Southwest Minnesota Housing Partnership. It was a special meeting to bring 2 new members on the board, one from St. Peter and one from Slayton. On the MICA meeting, as was mentioned, was interesting interesting. On the 25th, had the Diversity Council. Most of the discussion that day was on equity and inclusion and, trying to get a survey out there to see, what people think, how they're feeling about things. On the 26th, I had my first Airport Commission meeting, and it was very, very interesting. They're going to do a training for me, but, some of the things they want right now, until they get to 10,000 people using the airport a day, they get a lot less money. And Landline is still paying their rent and planning on, continuing once they can. But they're also counted as someone using the airport, which I found really interesting. Awesome. I would have never thought of that. They're going to do a new hangar, and they're getting 5 new airplanes for MSU. MSU has about 600 students using the airport. So lots going on out there. One of the questions was, can you use any hangar when you fly? And no, you can't. So they're doing an inventory of all the planes on the airport. And there have been some changes as to who's managing the airport now, so that will continue. So good stuff going on at the airport. Later that day, I had a YMCA board meeting, and the city manager's coming on the YMCA board. So good. Paul Vogel goes off, and she's going to come on, so it's a good thing. On the 27th, I had the Southwest Minnesota Housing Partnership Board. A lot of discussion about funding in the future with NeighborWorks, who's a national group that gives additional dollars for affordable housing, or workforce as I call it, and a lot of discussion about diversity and who are we serving and how are we serving people. That night I had community education with the school district, obviously. Jim Roy was reelected as our chair, and Lynn Schreiner was elected as our vice chair. I brought it along. The school district has to do how they're dealing with diversity, how they're dealing with education, a multitude of questions that the state determines have to be discussed and enumerated. So I brought that along. If anybody's interested in it, I have it. Just thought I'd tell you that. I guess I didn't realize that the school district was doing the AB at the jail, adult basic education, and GED. So I think it used to be done internally more, so that's good. I'm on the COVID task force for the Y. Matt DeRose chairs that from the city. So a lot of discussion about some of the people we're about half of the membership we had in the past, just because some people canceled their membership because they don't like wearing a mask. Too bad. You have to wear a mask when you're at the Y or you're asked to leave. And some people have just said, since I'm not comfortable going to the Y, I'm going to pause my membership. So trying to figure out how to build that once that that membership once it's over. We have gotten, John has been great about talking about the impact that Blue Earth County has made on their bottom line. Every time we have a board meeting, he brings it up and talks about how great Blue Earth County is. So I just thought I'd share that. Later that day, I had NACO board orientation. As you all know, the Ledge Conference is going to be virtual. And I've talked to Bob and Jesse, and there are different ways you can, you know, one person is $245. I'm making up the numbers right now, but that's about right. 5 people is $499. Unlimited is $1,049, which is less than half of what it costs to send one person to DC. So we're going to do the unlimited and invite our department heads to also participate. So I think that's a really positive thing, seeing what information they can glean on issues that are important to them. Later today, just for example, is I have a call with U.S. Senate staff on elections. They want to talk about how we do it in various places around the country and what type of legislation can be brought forward. It's really critical that Mike be part of that conversation, and he is going to be. But our other staff have things that NACO lobbies or works with that can really be helpful. So I'm excited about that. And later that day, I had a call with the 4 people who were on the NACO board and Julie to talk about each member of the county board or on the NACO board gets 5 comp tickets for the legislative conference. And we don't plan on using any of those on counties that can afford to pay. Just thought I'd mention that. But, you know, there's some new commissioners that might be helpful. And Kevin, you're not eligible. But new commissioners or a county that has never gone to a meeting, giving them that opportunity. We're going to take the 20 that we have, and Julie's going to put some data together so we can make good choices. So I'm excited about that too. Over the weekend, I got a lot of calls on Ditch 35. And just one other comment so you all know, Mary Jo McGuire has decided she's going to run for NACO second vice president. So Minnesota, I would think we'll all be ready to step up and help with that. There are 2 other people who have announced it had to be done by Sunday. So Christian Leinbach from Bucks County and Tara Wenner from Elkhart County, Indiana. So that's the end of my stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Well, good for Mary Jo.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, other than the things that were mentioned, I did hit a couple things. County Road 27 open house, which was already mentioned, but I just want to thank the other 2 commissioners that took the time to pop in on that. It's a different format, but they had some good questions and got some stuff answered for the constituencies. Had our South Central workforce, and at this time, Diane Holverson is retiring, and so they've appointed Heather as the new director, which Heather will do a great job. She's been helping Diane as the assistant for probably 4 or 5 years, but she does a really good job. So that's the big change there. But we just got our full report from all the staff there. Had a MVAC full board meeting. Got reports on all of the heating and from all the staff. They're just kind of muddling through the COVID stuff best they can. Judd and his staff have been getting a lot of stuff out there. They've gotten a lot of extra money from the state and federal government, so they've been able to get that out to our constituency, which is always good to hear. We had an MRCI executive meeting just going over a couple of the bookkeeping things that we have to deal with. We'll have a full board meeting on Monday. Had our emergency communication board here for the region. Had a good turnout, a couple new committee members for people that retired or moved on. Not a whole lot going on. We got an update on the grants and approved a couple more talk groups, and then we're working on some equipment purchases in the near future here. And then I'm also on the statewide emergency communication board, which we have that meeting right after that. And you hear from all of the other regions in the whole state, and we're just a small piece of that, but I give my legislative report on the 911 update and whatnot for that group. But they're doing well there, and then some ordinance discussion with Pat and the environmental services staff earlier this week. The ditch meeting this morning was also mentioned. And the last thing I want to mention is I went and helped out at the food drive a week ago Saturday that they had up at Dakota Meadows, and I just heard it on the radio. And so I didn't know who to volunteer with, so I just showed up. And they put me to work right away, and the fact that I had a truck, they put me to work a lot by the end of the day. So, but they had a great turnout. They served 700 and some families.
Wow.
Had a whole bunch of food left over, so we filled my truck and some other guy's truck up plumb full of food, took it down to the Echo Food Shelf. So they got them restocked. They got the Open Door Clinic pantry restocked, so that was all exciting. They were really excited to help that.
Yeah, you had to be. If
Let
they
me
have
know if
only
you
two
hear
trucks
about,
in.
Kip, let me know if you hear about that again. I could bring my truck up there.
Well, I can bump you all an email, but it's, I think, they're doing it once a month, so it'll be end of
That'd be
February.
good.
I don't remember the exact date.
I would love to help with that.
I think it's the last Saturday in February, but it was what was that day that it got kind of icky towards the end of the day, so we're out there and the snow was starting to blow and it was getting crappy out. But what a group of people. MVAC was part helped out volunteer too, but a lot of young people up there helping. It's just neat to see all the volunteers. But it's a no income, I'm not sure how you get qualified to do it, but like I said, 730 some families they fed, so they got
Awesome.
several boxes of food,
Good
a bag of
program.
apples, a bag of gallon of milk, and all kinds of stuff. But they were just excited about the stuff they had left over because they always run out.
Yeah.
So they were just excited about all the stuff they had left over, though we had to deal with it and find some place to go with it. It was just nice to have. I mean, there was like 40 gallons of milk left over, so it was nice to be able to get that out into the community. So it was just a really fun. Jamie from the Open Door Clinic is kind of who organized it.
Okay.
I showed up, she says, yeah, I help them here, and then she seen I had a truck, and so she asked me if we could do a couple things. Sure, whatever you need. So it was a lot of fun, and got to meet some new people, so.
It's great you did that.
Yeah,
It's important.
But I'll bump that to you guys. You can just, if you want to swing
Yeah,
by.
I
or-
appreciate that.
Yep.
I'll have to ask them how you sign up to be a volunteer instead of just showing up. But that concludes my report. So if there's nothing else for the good of the order, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Got
Second.
a first and a second. Jesse, can you do roll call, please?
Commissioner Pap?
Aye.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Stuenberg?
Aye.
Chair Brunder?
Aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
I guess I should have said it before.